So Act 3 releases today of episode Revenant, and with it we are getting the exotic mission Kel's Fall, as well as the last of the seasonal weapons, the scout rifle Red Tape, which is stasis, as well as the rocket launcher Heretic's Fervor. And we are also getting the exotic shotgun Slayer's Fang, which looks very cool, I might add, as well. All whilst we are confronting Vic Rule and his Scorn zombies in the finale of this act. Alongside the release, there's also some balancing going on with weapons. Let's get into those changes real quick. Leading off those changes, we have Heavy Burst Sidearms. We preemptively nerfed Heavy Burst Sidearms before we made the Destiny 2 Into the Light sandbox changes because they had one of the most forgiving body shot times to kill in the game. We have not walked back those changes entirely, as that goes against the spirit of the current PvP sandbox, but we do feel that increasing the strength of some close-range primary weapons is a worthwhile endeavor, given the relative power of other close-range engagement options. So you get an increased body shot damage from 30 to 33, as well as some increased crit damage as well. SMGs are one that I'm personally excited about because they have been struggling, so as follow. General, SMGs are currently struggling in both high-end PvE and PvP. We're combating more resilient enemies is making their small magazines feel overly punishing. We are bringing their magazine sizes up a small amount globally, and will also be slightly increasing their damage versus minor combatants in Heresy. Increase magazine size by approximately 10%. So the other change will come in Heresy for SMGs, and I think by that point they'll feel pretty strong. Next is auto rifles. Rapid fires have an increased damage slightly to remove a resilience gate from their optimal TTK, increased body shot just by a little bit, and same for that crit damage just to get over that resil gate. Now the big and beefy archetype here, of course, pulse rifles. High impacts. We have heard your feedback that in the hands of highly skilled players, high impact pulses can feel oppressive. We are removing their last bit of baked-in forgiveness, requiring them to hit 6 crits to achieve their optimal time to kill, against all resilience levels over 1. At the same time, to reduce their top-end effectiveness, we are decreasing their range via the ADS fall-off scaler, which will bring them more in line with adaptive hand cannons and reduce their range below all other pulse rifles. Reduced body shot from 22 to about 22.5, reduced critical hit damage by almost a whole point from 39.6 to 38.7, and reduced the ADS damage fall-off scaler as well. Lightweights. Lightweight pulses can feel too difficult to use for their time to kill and time on target requirements, so we're bringing up their optimal time to kill forgiveness up through all resilience levels. Increased body shot damage from 17 to 20.4, increased critical hit damage from 31.45 to 31.6. So yeah, it very well might be Season of the Lightweight Pulse, but yes, that does mean you are no longer going to have Elsie's rifle tattooed to your character, and you're going to be able to use some other guns here and there, which is fantastic. I mean, me personally, I actually enjoyed using Ancient Gospel a lot this past episode, because to the Pain, Eye of the Storm, it's just so accurate. But Elsie's rifle for long-range maps, I mean, there's nothing better than it right now, and this, again, is just awesome. It's majorly encouraging. Alright, then we just have a little change here to hand cannons. Precision hand cannons have seen a small bump in usage and effectiveness with the most recent buff to body shot damage, but we wanted to lean harder into the fantasy of the intrinsic perk. This change will affect Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten, and Malfeasance. The intrinsic hand cannon precision frame now reduces your ADS movement speed penalty by 10%. So that's a fun little change. We'll have to see how that shakes out. Then we have scout rifles, lightweights specifically. For a brief period, we buffed lightweight scouts to bring down their body shot time to kill, which is among the slowest in the game, and to make them more forgiving in terms of their optimal TTK. But these changes were quickly undone when we moved into the Light Crucible sandbox. We have re-implemented these changes tuned for the new health values in PvP. Body shot damage increased from 32 to 38, and crit damage from 64 to 64 and a half, and then some. So lightweights will feel a little bit better in PvP. And perhaps something that people have been waiting for. Me personally, I have always enjoyed sniping in Destiny, but recently it has not been great. So let's get into what they're trying to do with snipers. General, we are continuing with our work to reduce the visual flinch experienced by sniper rifles in Crucible to a more reasonable level. The intent is to maintain the difficulty of shooting through flinch to allow for counterplay, without it feeling too jarring to be damaged while scoped in. Reduce the camera roll component of flinch against players by 20%. Whisper of the Worm. We have further reduced the flinch experienced by Whisper of the Worm to compensate for it being a heavy weapon. Reduce the camera roll component of flinch against players by 50%. I don't know about everyone else, but flinch in general to me is just it's not a great concept for games to have in the first place. Unless you're like a super ultra realistic game, which Destiny 2 is not. I can tell you that. However, I understand it. It's, a bit of a challenge, even though sometimes you'll see people get flinched into the ceiling and still somehow hit a headshot because of some latency or whatever. But this is no doubt one of the most oppressive things that sniping has. And I mean, it's really hard to snipe in this game, and very rarely anymore do I see really good snipers who just don't let you get close to them at all. Most of the time now you just can neutralize a good sniper by just getting close to them, right? Unless they're ungodly with no scopes. So this is encouraging to see. I'll have to see how it pans out, how the 20% overall feels. Now this is something that I've been excited about. I have somewhat complained about how Skulking Wolf doesn't have any PvE effects, or at least there's no other traits on some of the Iron Banner weapons that are better for PvE or have PvE roles, but these are the changes for Skulking Wolf. We felt like the Iron Banner Origin perk could use an effect to make it worthwhile in PvE, and we think this addition is in line with the fantasy of the perk itself. The perk description string will be updated in a future release to reflect the new functionality. Now activates in PvE and makes enemies slightly less accurate in targeting when you activate it. This is like the effect Manticore has when airborne. And then some changes here to target lock. With the increased magazine sizes on SMGs, keeping this perk in its nerfed state rendered it effectively useless. We will keep an eye on how this perk changes the strength of SMGs in Crucible, and we are interested to see how it performs alongside the multitude of other very strong CQB options that currently exist. Remove the custom tuning to make the purse less effective on SMGs. And I think everyone knew this was coming, but yeah, Graviton Lance needed some attention. Graviton Lance is arguably the strongest primary weapon in the game when viewed across both PvE and PvP sandboxes. While it is not proving to be too problematic in high skill Crucible lobbies, it is dominating lower and middle skill lobbies to an unhealthy degree, as well as seeing extremely high uptime and potency in all levels of PvE content. As such, it needs to be brought more in line for both sandboxes. One option we considered was bringing down the stats to be closer to other heavy burst pulse rifles, but that felt like too much of a departure from the spirit of the weapon. Instead, we settled on reverting the RPM back to its previous value of 300. In PvE, the RPM reduction will effectively be a small DPS nerf, while in Crucible it will move the weapon back to how it was performing pre-Episode 2. Reverted its RPM to 300. Yeah, I'm sorry Graviton Lance users, maybe some of you are big fans of Graviton, you used it for a while. Me personally, I used it a little bit here and there this episode because of how good it's been, but really it's not my cup of tea, so enjoy it while you can. It's over now. I hope you enjoyed it. Last but not least, Titans, you get some fixes here to the spirit of Alpha Lupi. The healing impulse was tuned around Barricade, which has significantly less uptime than Thruster. Now that Alpha Loopy can work on Thruster, we needed to branch the effect's strength accordingly. Reduced heal impulse when using Thruster to 30 HP that can roll over onto shields. So there you have it. Those are most of the sandbox changes coming in Revenant, as well as the weapons to look forward to the exotic mission. As I said on this channel, I will have reviews going forward of the entirety of episode Revenant, as well as Act 3 in its entirety, and so on. And we'll also talk about the exotic mission at some point, how it feels. And hopefully the dev cycle has caught up a little bit here in Act 3, but I assume that we're gonna have to wait until Heresy to see any improvement on the community's feedback. Anyways, thanks for watching, and so yeah.